All right, so let's get started. Good morning, everyone. So, as usual, let's observe a few seconds of silence, like a couple of 3 to 4 deep breaths. Let's observe our inner state and go with the silence first. So, let's start with a few seconds of silence. All right, so now let's get started. So, I just want you to just reflect on one simple thought. At this very moment, when you experience a stillness or a silence for a brief time, say a few seconds, what is wrong with at that moment? Is there anything that was wrong at that present moment? Just give it a thought for a moment, for a second. Is there anything wrong in the moment when you were silent? Not from the past, not from the future, but just at that moment. I just want you to just hold on to that thought. We will discuss more about this, when we covering it. So essentially, there is nothing wrong with every single moment. It's just that the most of our suffering or the things that which bothers us either comes from the past or the future. So at the moment, everything is absolutely all right. So with that thought, let's get started. And I just quickly want to run through a quick recap of what we discussed so far. So essentially, we started off with understanding about thoughts. The thoughts are nothing but the ripples which come, which goes, and there is no harm with the thoughts. However, our attachment to the thoughts and when we feed it with our identities, and that's when the thoughts become bothering, which makes us suffer. And then we started looking at something about awareness, and we looked at awareness as Turiya as a one that I the state I said, and being a witness to every single emotion or everything that we experience in our life. To start with, when we are witness the present state, the awakened state, when we are completely conscious and awake, that is a someone who's witnessing that. And while we are sleeping, there is someone who's witnessing your our sleep as well. It can be while we are dreaming or even the dreamless. So attaching ourselves as a person who's a witness, irrespective of whatever the thought, situation, identity, or a state, that becomes an eternal observer. And that is what we are talking about, the fourth state, which is Turiya. And though that is, if you think that is a technical, leave that apart. We don't need to get attached to that uh, technical or the wordy thing like Turiya and other things. But just being a observer of anything that goes around us, it can be a sensation or it can be an emotion or a feeling, just being an observer. That's all we are trying to achieve for stillness. And then yesterday we discussed in detail about identities. So the reason why we went to identities are most of our thoughts are powered by identities, because some kind of an attachment that we have towards this identity, which we created from our childbirth until at this moment in our life, we create a lot of ideas and thoughts and definitions, belief, values, and etc. It can go on, and those things causes suffering. So the idea is to understand what are these identities are, and then gently see, are we getting attached too much with it? If we sense ourselves attached to it, then here we are going to go forward and see why attachment itself is the one which causes suffering instead of the other ones. It's not the thought, it is not the desire, it is not the identity, but our attachment towards those desires and thoughts causes the suffering, not the desire itself. We can look for the whole world, we expect the anything from the world, but then only if you're expecting and attaching for the result, then we suffer. Or else expecting itself is doesn't causes any suffering. So, with that thought, let's go a little more deeper to understand what is attachment. So, to understand attachment, we can talk about in Buddhism, they talk about four noble truths, right? The first noble truth Buddha talks about is suffering is real. Acknowledging the suffering is absolutely real. Every one of us go through suffering. It can be a physical suffering with our body, with some kind of a disease or a discomfort. We can suffer physically, or we can suffer mentally, like the psychological way by thoughts, our thinking. We can suffer with our mind. So the suffering is absolutely true. It happens. That's why we suffer. The moment when we are going through the pain, it is important to acknowledge the pain. It is not just saying that the pain doesn't exist. So that's why they say, if you go to a person who's depressed and say, oh, depression is nothing, so it is the person who's experiencing know the pain of it. It is not the one who's from the outside who can say depression is nothing. It is just you are creating something, which is much more hurtful when people say that. So that way, acknowledging the suffering is the first noble truth, that is suffering is real. And the second noble truth is, according to Buddha, it is the suffering ultimately comes from our attachments. It is not by itself, it is not from the our from our thoughts or desires, but attachment to our desires cause suffering. So the attachment is the one key thing Buddha talks about in the second noble truth, is the root cause of any suffering. And the third one, the noble truth, Buddha says is there is a way to transcend out of the suffering. And the fourth one, he gives us a path. In the fourth noble truth is nothing but he talks about eightfold path in which we can lead our life, and then how we can come out of the suffering. Though we are not going to go deeper into that aspect of it, I just want to point that out as this noble truth. When Buddha said the attachment is a root cause of suffering, we are just going to examine that as a witness, as in we detach ourselves with all those attachments and see, is it true? What is making sense to us? So with that, let's go into an attachment. So yes, and yesterday I just came across a story, and I thought, okay, it is also uh, will make us much more connect to what I'm just trying to say about attachment. So the story goes like this: there is a monk, a student, and there is a teacher. So this monk, he wants to become enlightened being. So what he does is so he goes to meditation every single day. He sits on the rock and then he closes his eyes, starts meditating. And as the day go by, he's getting deeper and deeper in his practice. However, there is one thing that happens is every day whenever he goes into practice, that is whenever he goes into meditation, his teacher will walk in and then he just laughs at him and then goes out. So though this guy, the student who's completely dedicated to the meditation and then he's trying to calm his mind, he was feeling annoyed because all he expecting is this teacher to come and tell him that how good he is practicing, everything going to be all right and everything is going to be okay. But then for him, whenever the teacher laughs, he feels annoyed. So this was going on for some time. And eventually he goes to one time, where he's really deep, really, really deep, meaning he's reaching the stillness within him, right? So he's really deep with his practice. And then the louder, the teacher, he starts laughing louder and louder, and which annoys him so much. And this time, on that specific day, when the student reaches a state of absolute stillness, right? That is when a teacher comes with a brick, and then he starts rubbing over the rock where the student is meditating. And then the students come out of his meditative state and then ask, what are you doing? And then the teacher says, by rubbing the brick over this rock, I'm trying to make it as a mirror, right? I'm just trying to make it as a mirror, polished one. And then the student says, how can you make the brick as a mirror? It is no way possible. Are you stupid? What has happened to you? Why are you acting so stupidly? And that is when the teacher says, see, while practicing, you're reaching stillness is one thing, but then your attachment to outcome, when I laugh, you're getting annoyed, itself is a hindrance for you to go to the next level. And then the teacher, by symbolically, what he does is he throws the brick outwards and then says, now you let go of that self as well. You let go of the meditation, attachment to meditation as a practice to reach a stillness as well. And then he throws the stone out, and he tells the student that now the moment you let go of something as an anchor, something you are holding yourself, let go of that. And that is the time that you get enlightened. And also the teacher tells the student that now you're ready to go and teach people. The first thing to teach people is about meditation, how to see things clearly. And the second thing you should teach people is non-meditation, how to let go of the attachment to the meditation to reach that state. And that is when you are completing the cycle of attachment and detachment. So this example, why it struck with me is most often in our path to self-realization, self-awareness, we also try to attach to our own practices. It can be any practices which needs absolutely important when we are beginning, when we are starting our journey. At the same time, we should be mindful that we are not getting anchored to it. We are just not holding on to it forever. We should eventually have a mindset of letting go of that as well. And instead, we should start become a being who is non-attached to any of this self. So that's the story to say that even in a spiritual journey, attachment is the practices to the attachment also has to be carefully looked at. With that being said, let's go a little more deeper in terms of understanding what exactly we attach ourselves to. Right? The first thing that we generally attach to ourselves is, as we discussed yesterday, it is our identities. Our identities comes from varieties of forms. It can be a belief, nationality, language, family, roles, etc. There is indefinite, infinite ways of identities. And those are the one first level we attach to, because we are first level, we are telling them, I am so and so. I believe this. I value this. There is an I component, am component, and then we are completely believing in that. So the identities, there's a first level of attachments. So from yesterday's exercise, one of the, Kushal has also said, there is a I am part of it, and then he feels some sense of it. The moment someone questions us, we get angry. We feel unhappy about the situation. So that's the first identity. The second one, it is primarily attachment to people, right? So attachment to people is something like our loved ones. Especially, I'm not talking about the people we hate, but then we get attached to our loved ones so much and that also forms a different sense of it. I'll tell you, what is the consequences. But then the second part is mostly towards people, the loved ones especially. We get attached to them. And the third one, it is to our possessions, maybe, the things that we own. It can be our house, it can be our car, it can be a good watch that I hold. Attachment to it, right? It doesn't mean that we should never have, all this materialistic things accumulated. No, it is perfectly fine to have things. But then our attachment to it, how much of the pain that will cause when the thing that we appreciate and have it in our life, we have to let go of it for anything. If there's someone we have to give it away, or we have to, what do you say, someone stole it, or any kind of a situation, how much of a suffering that can cause. So there comes a possession. And final thing, it can be any situation. When I say situation, it can be a point in time, where we really love and the situation which we are surrounded with. And that anchoring for us, so we love the situation so much, we want the situation to happen every time. Whenever we experience life, we want more and more of the situation. It can be a joyful time with our loved ones, right? Or it can be the excitement that we get by playing some sports, or it can be anything. So we get attached to so much of the situation, or the best thing is attachment towards our outcomes, especially if you are in some kind of a competition or something. We can also get attached to the outcomes of any situations, right? It can be a competition, whereas that we expect that we should win. So participating itself is not a problem, right? No, we can absolutely compete anywhere we want. But then when you're looking at the outcome of that competition, then we attach to ourselves, and that will cause us a suffering. The moment we, we fail our own expectation, we beat ourselves and we cause ourselves a suffering. So these are some of the examples that we can look into it when you're talking about attachments. So all these things to our identity, attachment to our identity, attachment to people, attachment to our possession or the things, or attachment to a situation or a specific outcome, this all can cause a kind of a discomfort and suffering for us. So as I said again, I'll just repeat it. A desires by themselves doesn't cause pain, but our attachment to the desires cause pain. If that is so clear, then everything doesn't matter, because I'm not the one who's asking you to become uh, let go of all the desires, let go of all your possessions, let go of the people. No, be with them, be there, have as much of a life that you can always have. Take it within. Just that, look forward to not getting attached to things, because that is the root cause of suffering that we are talking about. And then, yes. So the other thing that I wanted to quickly just share was what happens when it comes to attachments. So the first is we kind of, okay, Kushal, you want to share, please?
Yeah, Karthik, you said that you should have desires, but you should not get attached to it.
Yes.
I mean that's good. Are you going to say how we can achieve that?
Okay. Okay. It is how is will come to that question.
Yeah, because that's the most difficult
Well,
part.
it is tough. Okay, it is tough. I understand that, and I have few examples when you're talking about the outcomes is or the desires and the how when we don't get it, the attachment part of it. I'll just quickly just share that as well with you. So for an example, let's is it answered my, I mean, I'll come to that, Kushal. Is it okay with you? I
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I still saw your
yeah.
hands raised up. So the first level, what we do generally is we will have all these things, the mental construct that these are the things going to give me happiness, right? So it can be people, it can be a possession, some form of identity, or some kind of a situation. We know that these are the things going to give us happiness in our life, or a joyness and peacefulness, whatever you want to call it as. So that is the first thing. From there, we want that more, right? We eagerly wait for more and more of that. We crave for it, we get it. And the moment we get it, also, we won't be happy. So, what happens next is a fear of losing that will come in. The fear of losing is the moment you have a beautiful watch or a wonderful house, you will start fearing, what if the earthquake comes to my house? What if I lose my house? What if there is some new law comes in and then they demolish my house? Or what if someone something happens to my loved ones? So there comes a fear of losing people, or fear of losing the possession. There is a fear of the situation changing into something. Kushal?
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right.
But okay,
So there comes a fear part of it.
okay,
And that fear also, it doesn't just there. I mean, the fear is that's why some of them they say the false evidence appearing real. It is nothing but at that moment we are imagining things. There are different types of fears as well, which we will may look into it, but then the other fears are real. For an example, if there's a tiger in front of you and then the state of you being fearful, that is real, because you are getting as vigilant as possible. That is a different fear. But here what I'm talking about a fear is the mental constructs of fear. The mental construct is what if clause that we create, and then we become a prisoner of our own inner fears. That's what
okay,
I'm talking about. So
okay,
it can be fear of losing our loved one, fear of our health. It can be a fear of losing our job. It can be anything. Literally any life situation we can construct and then be the prisoner of that fear.
got it.
And the third thing, the third stage is those situations really happening to us, irrespective of anything. For an example, if we lose a loved one, like if there is a breakup, for an example, in a normal love relationship, the two people, they come together, they celebrate life and being in love. The moments are all good. They enjoyed the time together. But then if because of some situation, situation which is Unfortunate, if they have to break their way apart, like they have to take a different journey, that causes suffering. That causes sadness, grief, and etc. That is when you there is a situation when you go through. It can be a breakup, you lose your the job or any of these things. I mean, job specifically or a business or anything that causes the pain, and also any situation that doesn't turn out the way that we want, we're losing in a competition or anything. So these things will cause pain. That is a perfect sadness. So
Okay.
all these levels when you're talking about, one is getting things, then fearing that what if we lose, and when we lose it, we go through suffering. That is what I'm talking about as attachments,
Got
right?
it. Got it.
So with that being said, yeah, and there is a okay. So I just quickly want to check with you one question as well. So if there's a question, if just think for a moment, I cannot imagine my life without dash. What will you fill that with? I cannot imagine my life without something that is dash. What will you fill that? Think about it. You don't have to say it, but then mentally think about what that one thing that will cause pain to you, because you're imagining, you're craving for it. Literally, you want your all out self wants that, what that will be. Think for a moment, because that is an absolute example of what you're really attached towards. It can be people, it can be situation, or it can be your possession. You can say that I cannot imagine my life without dash. Think about it. All right. So with that being said, we go to a little bit of what is non-attachment is, right? So there is a whole topic of you're talking about equanimity. I mean, we will go a little more deeper later on it. I mean, there is the coming sessions. There is something called equanimity that is in again Buddhist teaching. It's called one of the Brahma Viharas they talk about. So which we will do talk about as equanimity is a state which is neutral, which is not influenced by anything that's happening to us in a positive or the negative, but then being in a place of absolute stillness or balanced state. That is what it is, equanimity. And there is also understand about impermanence. The impermanence is anything that's happened to our life. It can be from our very thought, it can come and go, it can be our desire, identity, everything is subject to change. That is where the comes is non-attachment. So to give you a small example about non-attachment is, so we know that when they're on the lotus leaf, if there is a droplet, the droplet it always resides on the when I say always, at that when it is properly attached, the droplet will still be on the top of the leaf, the lotus leaf. However, it is attached, but at the same time, it rolls, it is detached. It is not absolutely hold on to the leaf. It is much more of a fluidic nature. It just rolls from one to the other. It doesn't stick itself so deep. And also, if you look at an example of tamarind, the tamarind fruit as such, not the unripened one, but the fruit. So if you look at, they both are together. The outer layer, the shell of a tamarind fruit, it is covered with the fruit inside. The shell, it is kinds of over a period of time, it is detached. It doesn't go and attach to the tamarind fruit, but it is kind of detached. If you have seen it, right? So you can just actually poke a hole into it and then you can take it out, right? So that is a kind of attachment and detachment I'm talking about. It is not about a complete detachment to things, but then you're there at the same time, you're not attached. You have all the desires, all the expectations or everything, the things that you want, but then you don't attach yourself to the outcome or any of those desires. So it is uh, it can be a simple thing as morning, I expect something from my wife, right? I expect this from my wife today. that she should do this. And I'll feel happy if she prepares my favorite food, for an example. I'll come to that, Kushal. So yeah. So my wife, I'm expecting that, okay, if she makes my favorite dish, I'll feel happy today. And then, like, I go there and there is nothing wrong with me expecting. But the moment, like, I go and see that is the food or the dish is not made, me getting angry about it or a disappointment about it, that is what I'm talking about. In that moment, if I accept the moment as it is, then I'm relieving myself of that pain. And then obviously I can go and tell my wife, this is what I was expecting. I'm craving for this today. There is no, like, nothing wrong in expressing yourself, expressing to any person. It can be anything. You can express as much as that you want, but then expecting that the other person has to fulfill, and you attach to that, oh, if only if it happens I'll be happy, that is what causes suffering. So that is something to talk about when you're talking about non-attachment. And I just want to go to the next session, next part of the session. And before that, I just want to leave you with one quick thought. So, for a very long period of time, I used to think that if I have to follow or this join this quest of, like, self exploration, self awareness, and other thing, then I may have to let go of a people in my life. I have to let go of things, possession, and everything, become a monk, or let go of all my materialistic things and then become like that. I used to think like that. All right. So then I realized it is actually not that true. It is like, living each moment as truthful as possible with every single thing that in your life, with a complete, like, immersion, like, everything in your life. At the same time, you don't get affected by any attachments. So that is why I started writing, like, love without any attachment, give without expectation, live in oneness with everything. So you start appreciating more of every time that you spend. So this I can relate with my time with my son, because from my son when he was born, from that my daughter as well. But then, like, from the time he was born, you see every single milestone. And if you're a parent, I'm sure that you'll be able to relate better, because at each and every milestone, they are the absolute source of happiness when they were reaching, when you start taking the first step, or when they start first eating the food, or they start playing, they start speaking, and etc. And over the period of time, you also see that they are becoming a little, like, every single day they are growing up. And you see that they are also getting detached from ourselves, like, that dependency towards the parent reduces every single day. And that causes some kind of a discomfort. Oh my God, so I'm losing my son in a different way. And also that this is a time for me to remind myself, I have to hold this present moment with him so deeply, because I'm not going to get this moment. Instead of me fearing that what if he grows and then he doesn't respect me or doesn't value me anymore, there is no attachment. Instead, I started spending more time with him in an immense, like, the love and appreciation for that moment. The same thing can happen with your loved ones, your life partner, your better half, or it can be not even it can be of a partner, it can be any partner. So instead of expecting them to be with you forever, you can deeply love them for that moment. And then, irrespective of whether they're going to be with you tomorrow or the later on in your life, it is all depends. But then, you being there, appreciating the love, that is more important. So with that being said, we already taken enough time. So yeah, some of the things what I planned for it, we may not be able to go through it right today. However, like, this morning I thought of one exercise. This is called Oponopono. I'm not sure how many of you heard of it, but Oponopono is a very powerful experience, I mean, an exercise itself, which I used to practice some time ago. So this is a Hawaiian practice, which is to bring peace from the past or to any situation, any challenges that we go through. And I want one of our participants, like, Deepa, she's my sister as well. And I want her to go through, I mean, she's the practitioner of Oponopono and she takes a lot of classes. And I just want her to help us go through an experience of Oponopono when it comes to our attachments to identities and etc. So, with that being said, be open, receptive of what is Oponopono, and try to understand a bit more about it, and we can deepen the practice of Ho'oponopono in the coming sessions as well. So I'll hand it over to Deepa for now and just experience what is Ho'oponopono. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Um, so I'll just brief about what Ho'oponopono is, and then let us go into the practice. So it is an ancient Hawaiian method, Ho'oponopono. So Ho means to make, and Pono is right. It is repeated twice. It is making right, doubly right. It is making it right for us and also for others. Okay, and there is a lot of ancient story to it that you can read it online. And I just want to brief a story about Dr. Haleakala Hugh Len, who is a clinical psychologist, and how he healed a ward of criminally insane uh, patients by using only this method. So what he was appointed in that hospital to take care of criminally insane patients, where there was nobody uh, willing to step into that ward to take care of them. Even the helpers wouldn't go in, and it was so horrible in that place. What he did is he set up a room in that hospital, and he took all the files of the patients, and he started practicing this Ho'oponopono for each and every patient, and whatever it is, that file has their details, the patient's details. He didn't even visit them once, and in 3 years there were no one suffering or going through that kind of illness, and they were all eventually recovered, and they got released from that ward. I'll post a link about that story from one of my favorite author, Alan Cohen. um, and what this practice means is, so what we are doing is we are living from a memory. Whatever we are attached to, it comes from a memory, right? So instead of living from a memory, what we are going to do is we are starting to live from a place of inspiration. So for living from space of inspiration, what we have to do is we need to clear all the memory. So this method helps in clearing that. So how do we do this? There are 4 phrases: I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. So it is when we are practicing this Ho'oponopono, we are going to repeat this 4. And before that, the one important thing is, whatever we see, we are taking 100% responsibility for that. So I'm feeling attached to something, I'm feeling to let go. Maybe my kids are growing up and they need to go to college, and I am worried that she is going to go away from me, and that is weighing me down because I'm so attached to her being with me till now, till her 12th grade, right? So what I'm going to do is, like, I'm taking that situation, I'm feeling so attached, that attachment is weighing me down, it is making me worry every day. And so what I would do is that I'll just start practicing this. I'll just take responsibility. Okay, I'm seeing this situation is not making me feel good. So I'll just repeat, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, and thank you. And we are not saying this to anyone or anything. So we are saying it as the pure form of energy that we made into suffering or attachment, which made us suffer. So it is not, when we take a conflict with the person also, we are not saying I'm sorry and please forgive me to that person, but we are saying it to that situation. So when we take 100% responsibility, it is easy for us to change our perception. So one situation we can see in a million different ways. So if you take a news channel, so one same news, there'll be different perspective coming in different news channels, right? It is like that. So it is our perspective which is creating this disturbance in us. So we are doing it for only that situation. Okay. So maybe we'll take some situation now, which is related to attachment. So when everyone have one situation, please raise your hands so that we can start practicing it. Yeah. Please let me know when you have a situation in your mind by using the reactions. Yeah, okay. Yeah, raise your hands. Okay. Or if you have
Desperate.
any doubt also, please let me know in taking the situation or
That means we have to choose the conflict situation in our life.
yeah, we are ready to heal. That is what it is. So this Ho'oponopono practice is not a one-time practice like it is. If you take a situation till you feel a release, maybe you take a mild situation now, so that we are going to practice it for 3 minutes. Karthik, is it okay? We practice for 3 minutes or
Yeah, pretty much. Like, go with the 3 minutes. So I'll
yeah,
just add to that part is one quick thing is see the Oponopono itself is for a situation or anything that you can come across. So I would say what is making you discomfort or uneasy at this moment in your life? Can be anything. It can be a simple thing as like, the noise around me is making me uncomfortable. Or it is like, my fear of losing someone, or it can be anything, right? It can be a traffic, you're in the middle of a traffic and then you feel annoyed that someone is honking, right? You wanted to do open up for that, you can do that. It is gently anything that is making you uneasy, uncomfortable, and make you suffer, you take that. So for this thing, take anything from your life which comes to your mind, I lose my mind or makes me uncomfortable, one thing, take that, that's all. And yes, Deepa, what do you? Thanks.
yeah, maybe a mild situation so that we could feel what is happening next after practicing this. Okay. Yeah. So what we are going to do is we are going to close our eyes and we are going to repeat, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. First, we are going to take 100% responsibility. I am responsible. I am responsible for whatever I am seeing. So so for my example, I'm going to take I am I'm taking 100% responsibility for how I feel about letting go of my daughter to college. Okay, so that is one situation I'm taking. So I am feeling responsible. So instead of saying it, I want you to all feel, okay, this is me, I am feeling it, I am taking responsibility for whatever I'm seeing. In some situations it might be different, like you might think, no, it is their fault, why should I take responsibility for that. That is not the case. It is like whatever it is, the not so good feeling is inside you, so you are taking responsibility for whatever you see. Okay, so feel the responsibility. Close your eyes, take a situation, feel the responsibility, and start saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Keep repeating this. Just focus on saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. When you say it, just feel it from your heart. Clearing happens when you start repeating these four phrases again and again. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, love you, and thank you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. Notice how you feel inside when you are repeating these four phrases again and again. What's Just pay attention to what's happening inside you and how you feel, and slowly open your eyes and come back to the room. So, yeah, this practice takes time. I would do it for an hour or two, depending upon how I feel. Till I feel relieved, there is something, some emptiness I would feel inside. There is some nothingness. Uh, Kartik means it as stillness, right? So I would be repeating it till I feel better. Yeah. So it depends on there are various levels of attachment, or we have to some situations. Some might be a small problem. For that, doing it for a little bit of time would be okay. It is how you feel and how you do, how long you do it depends upon you. When you feel like you're feeling better than before, you could just open your eyes, and you can also take the same situation and do it again. again and again till it becomes zero. Whenever I do it for pain, what I do is before going to sleep, I'll just put on the audio. There is a 1 hour YouTube audio. I'll just put on that. I'll just listen to that and go to sleep. And what our subconscious does it picks that last whatever I did last, and it just continues for the night. So I get the credit of doing practicing it all night by doing that. And I have experienced a lot of things shift immediately after doing it, like when I do it in the night. So the practice continues even if you sleep, when you start doing it when you are going to bed. Yeah, actually what I do is, Selvi, like I'll just do it not like a meditation practice. I'll just repeat it in my mind, and I'll be doing some work or other, like autopilot mode. We can wash vessels or do something, fold clothes. That work, when I'm doing that work, I'll just repeat it in my mind. So if you can't sit for an hour and do it, we can do like that. Or night time, it is good that we can get a stretch of time so that we could do it longer. That's how I'm practicing it. Even when I'm doing some work, I'll just remember, then I'll start telling it, not all the four phrases, but sometimes I'll just repeat thank you, or sometimes I'll say I'm sorry I treated you this way. So it is not that we need to say all the four. Sometimes asking for forgiveness is hard for us in some situations. So just leave it and include it later. And one more thing is like, uh, if it is hard for you to practice, we can give it a shape. Like it is a long-standing issue you want to heal. What you can do is just think of it, close your eyes, think of it, and you feel it in your body. Where is it weighing me down? That situation. So it is in my heart. So what I do is I'm taking it out from my heart and keeping it in front of me and giving it a shape to it. So whatever it is, it might be a rock, it might be a mountain, it might be a balloon, ball, whatever it is, you're giving a shape to it. You start saying these four phrases to that shape, and you do it for 30 minutes and then come out. Next time you take the same situation, and when you see it, the shape might have been changed. So you're doing practice for that shape, and you can continue it till it becomes nothing. So in that way you have worked on it fully. So that initially I was practicing that to get a hold of it, and that helped me a lot. So maybe if you have any questions about this practice, let me know in that group. I'll try my best to reply it with the knowledge I have. And I'll also share the video. And thank you all. Karthik, over to you. You can.
Thank you so much, Deepa. Thank you. So, all right. So we have taken, today is quite a long session. I'm sure that, you should be all okay with it. I'm sorry for that if you feel it's long. So I just quickly want to wrap this up with the few more example for Ho'oponopono. I'll just take 1 minute, not beyond that. So see, the Ho'oponopono, why it is so important is so most of our suffering at this present life or the present time that we are in, it comes from the past, right? The most of the attachment towards the past event, we just run it again and again and again, and then we go through the suffering at the moment, right? So whatever happened in our past, and very especially so it happens with some kind of a misunderstanding between two people. It can be anybody, it can be loved one, it can be the third person or our colleague or someone, with whatever the experience we had with that person, which we can run it again and again, and then we go through suffering. So that is where the Ho'oponopono comes in, to let go of any of the events, attachment to the situation, people, or a possession that we may lost. Allow them to heal, let go of it. So the Ho'oponopono, when you're talking about, say, I love you, especially when you're taking your worst enemy in this world, the enemy that you don't want to see again, You can do oponopono when you bring that person and then say that. What I mean is, my worst enemy, whoever that person is, like, who I consider like someone who did horrible thing to me, I can bring that person, I can say, I love you to that person. Now, the question that you may ask is, how can you say I love you to the person you hate the most? I ask, I love you from my inner state of love and the state of in love to the other person, the purest form of the other person. Before the situation occurs, before the person committed something to me, there is the pure version of him which is within himself. And I'm saying, I love you to that pure self. And then I'll say, I am sorry, because any conflict, any situation, it needs two people to create it. So I'm asking sorry from my side of the bargain. If I caused it by any means a discomfort of the other person, so that is the reason if the other person reacted in certain way, then I'm being sorry for the way I expressed, even with all the good intention. But if it hurted the other person to react in certain way, I say I'm sorry. And when I say, please forgive me, I'm asking to the other person for the forgiveness from my side of the bargain. It is not from what he has to do, what he's done, but from my side of the bargain. And finally, you're letting go of that person from your own mind by saying thank you. So that is a practice itself, which is a profound, which we can explore deeper maybe in the coming sessions. And thank you so much for being there. And there is one question Kushal asked, and the Kushal, we will do it in the Q&A part after this, right? So thank you so much. And with this, we'll conclude the session today, and we will go open to a Q&A sessions now. Yes. So Kushal, you wanted to go? You wanted to ask?
Yeah, Karthik. So, I mean, there are a lot of external factors, right? Like somebody loses his job,
Okay.
and then you say this prayer, right?
Yes.
I'm just wondering how can this prayer help him? Because it's because of, let's say, COVID, he has lost his job,
Okay.
and now he says that, okay, I'm sorry, please forgive me,
Mhm.
and thank you, and I love you.
Uh-huh.
What is what is happening? What is happening? What I understand is it something that, okay, you first acknowledge the problem he's facing, and then you accept it, and then you love that problem, or how is it like?
Okay. I'll explain with the same example that what you brought in. Say there is a person who lost his job,
Yeah.
right? So his situation can be from a multiple place. The first is a kind of a anger that he gets from, he has towards his employer, right? The one
Yeah.
who fired him for whatever the situation that might be. He may have a kind of unsettling thought, why they fired me. That would be a thought that would occupy his mind for so long.
Correct.
That's the first thought. Is it right?
Okay.
I'm asking you, Kushal. You can acknowledge as in. So do you
No,
think
like maybe that is one of the reason
one
that
of the thought,
one
right?
of the thought. Yeah.
One of the thought, yes. And the second one is the situation that he's presently facing. That is, he's out of job, and then he is going through a stressful situation, right?
Yeah.
So this is the two emotion. Let's see if we talk about. The first thing is when you're saying talking about I love you is the one towards an employer. Let's talk about the external part first, then we talk about internal. So the external part is an employer. So I'll say I love you. If I'm in this place, I'm doing it, I would say I love you from a place where uh, fair, they gave an opportunity for me to work with them for whatever the brief period or the duration that I work for them. And I thank you so much that I'll say I love you for allowing me to work in the organization. I love you for that. And I'm sorry that we are all collectively facing these consequences. I mean, the situation, which is a, say, pandemic. So I'm sorry that we are all facing it. And please forgive me that I am not able to contribute at this moment to your suffering, because the employer also is going through a suffering that is through the because of pandemic. He has to let go of the people, right? It is not a good situation to be in. So he letting go of the people from a place of say, I please forgive me that I cannot contribute to this. And finally say thank you and all the best good wishes for the employer. This is one side of it, thinking that the employer is the one who caused me that pain. And the other side, when I'm saying the other side of it, which is me feeling that a little bit of uncertainty that I received at this moment, I can go ahead and say first acknowledging the inner self, saying that I love you. The part which feels uncomfortable at this moment, I'll say, I love you for bringing this to my awareness and then make me feel that I am a little bit of unsettling with the present situation. So I love you for making me aware of the things, because that is a very emotion that is giving the fear, that is also making me aware of it. So I love you for that. And when I say sorry, I will say, if from my side, if there is either one I created that, because the fear of uncertainty that is coming from within, who creates it? I created it to you, then I'm sorry for it. Then please forgive me that I made you come awake and snap on my face and tell me that you're feeling uncomfortable. I'm sorry to creating this situation, so please forgive me. And thank you so much for reminding me that I have to look forward to the better thing in life. And that way we become a little more aware of it. So this can be played out in any form, Kushal. Like, it can be with towards a person, to the company, to the emotion, to the pain. It can be for anything. It is essentially what we're looking at, going to the deep root of what is making us uncomfortable and acknowledging it and gently say, I am I love you for the purest form. Thank you. I'm sorry and forgive me. So that's all how it works. We'll go deeper, Kushal. If you are a
It
little bit,
gives you some, I mean, it gives you some kind of peace when you say this, right? Like,
yes, it is to bring in a peace within us, in a way. That is what we are talking about when you're talking about a stillness. A
yeah,
stillness is nothing but a place which stays outside the suffering area, right? The where you don't suffer. So without anything, the moment you reconcile with every situation and event, naturally you feel the stillness within, right? So you bring in that peace within by saying all these things. So it is not just a prayer or a phrases. The moment you really deeply you go inwards, I'm sure you will come out with why you should love that emotion. Because as I believe, no emotion is wrong. Even the worst and negative, even the depression, it has its purpose. The stressful situation, that emotion has its purpose. Acknowledging it and saying that I love you for reminding me that I should take care of something is a profound way of looking.
got it, got it. Thanks, Karthik.
Thanks, Kushal. Yes, so if you have any other questions, please you may ask, or we can conclude for today.
Karthik,
Yes.
sorry, if I have another question. If nobody like is
Sure, sure. Please,
asking.
Kushal, go ahead. Go ahead. We will go with it.
So Karthik, you said that about the detachment, right?
Yes.
I don't see anybody in real life who is having that superpower of detachment, uh, unless and until somebody who's enlightened, like let's say maybe Sadhguru or
Uh-huh.
Sri Sri Ravi Shankar Guruji. I don't know. I'm just
Okay.
I feel only those people who have um, who have like yeah. Basically, I don't see anybody with that
Okay.
superpower.
Okay.
When then how easy it is to be detached, right? It's so hard. It's hard. Like I'm sure you know the significance of it, but even it's very hard for you to implement that, right? Because you love, let's say you love your son,
Mhm.
and you can't even think of it, right? When something happens to him, right?
I can.
So yeah, you are so attached to him. So then, how do you easily say you detach, from that? So it's like it's very very hard.
Kushal, first of all, the point is, as I said, see the attachment and detachment, it is a very definition of what is detachment that you're referring to is what is going to play a major role. As I said, always the desires are good to have, right? So me spending my time, it's just you brought in the thing of losing my son or something happening to my son or my daughter or my wife. It can be any loved ones. I can tell you, I already thought about it, right? When I say I thought about it, I know it causes pain within me. Some part of me, I'm sure that is going to cause pain. But then it doesn't mean that, I'm completely detached. I will not speak to them, or it is not that kind of a detachment. I'm just detached in such a way that I love them so much. Every moment I spend, I completely attach with them so deeply, right? And at the same time, I don't expect my son that, oh, if he grows up, he should act in certain way. That is the detachment I'm talking about, right? It is
Okay.
not completely keeping them away, not desiring at all, like, I don't want a better life. No, it is not that attachment. It is having everything, but just allowing it to, even if you don't get it, be okay with. How can that be?
Okay. Okay.
Right? So there is a, see, this is a, like, a part of balancing act. If attachment is one side of it, detachment is other side. We are talking about a place which is between that, right? It is not neither or. If I'm not attached, then I'm completely detached. No, you attach as well as detach. You be there, you be with them with 100% of love, especially in the love relationship, right? So you be with your partner so much, so deeply. At the same time, you're also detached. Even if you have to lose them because of life situation, you're at peace. You don't go and suffer your own self, make yourself suffer. So that is a thing that I'm talking about. If it is not clear, we can always relook into it,
Got it. Got it.
right?
Thanks, Karthik.
Yeah.
Yes, Karthik. Completely detachment is not the answer to
Mhm.
our suffering. It is right. Balanced situation is necessary.
Yes. So the
Okay.
detachment to the outcomes primarily.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm going to ask a question to you.
Sure.
That you have said that we have to respect all the emotions and feelings of ourselves,
Yes.
whether they are negative or positive.
Sorry.
Yeah. Uh, if the feelings are negative or positive,
Possible.
we have to respect them. This is
Yes.
the point. Yeah.
Yes.
Then why are we giving so much importance to the feelings like
So much importance to feeling of love.
love?
Okay. You said love, right?
Love is only the one of the feeling of us.
Yes.
Hmm. But we are giving so much importance to that feeling. Why?
And then again, it is a question of what is love you defined as, Tanaji. So when I say that, I always believe that the definition we create is what challenges or, like, makes us suffer. So love itself is the purest form. There is no expectation, there is no attachment, there is no, if I love you, you should love me. There is no bargain. It is not a trading, or it is not a give and take thing, right? The love as a purest form I can show to anything. I mean, literally, I can show it to my car. I mean, when I used to have the car which for a long time, and I have to sell that car, like, there is definitely, there is a love. I can feel it. I literally sat in front of my car and then saying that all the love towards the car. It is, when I say love, for me, the definition of love is completely different. So that is when we have to, like, examine what is the definition that we are creating to every single emotion, right? So it's not that love is a superior. The love as a purest place, it is absolute acceptance. No matter who the other person is, no matter what situation is, no matter what things as it is. Like, for an example, I have my laptop. My laptop falls down and then it's just broke a hinge. All of a sudden, I don't hate my laptop. Like, I love my laptop, which served me for there and then for this conversation. With that imperfection of a dent in my laptop, also, I would love that, right? So with my possession, people, everything, you love deeply. So love without any expectation, attachment, or any kind of give and take things. That's what I mean by love when you say love, right? So it's all perspective, right, Tanaji? So if you have, see, just one quick thing to all of you is, like, you can just post these questions as well, like, if you have, and which is lingering in your mind after the session, please post it in the WhatsApp group. We can surely look into it. Okay. I'm sorry, we are already, like, going, taking a lot of time today, and we can discuss this again as well. Okay. So this is the certain element which we need to get an understanding for deepen our practice. So with that, if you have a question, we can discuss or we can conclude for today. All right. So with that, thank you so much for staying with me for so long. I really appreciate it, and see you tomorrow.